change in the fundraising sector has never been greater. But innovations in technology are evolving faster than our ability to understand them. Are these advances good or bad? Do they have unintended consequences? And what is the application to the global fundraising sector? That's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Fundraising AI Podcast, your up-to-date resource for responsible AI for the global fundraising community, hosted by Nathan Chappell and Scott Rosenkrantz.
Hey, welcome, everyone. I don't know who's here, but welcome. If you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, I'm here, Nathan Chappell with Scott Rosenkrantz. It is the butt crack of dawn. And this morning, we're the official term. We're in, I don't even know where we're at. We're in St. Pete, I think. We flew into Tampa.
Yeah.
You got here 1 a.m. I got here yesterday. We are here for the Giving Institute and the, midterm board meeting update. And Giving Institute is the foundation that helps provide thought leadership and raise money for Giving USA. It's an incredible organization, and we're really fortunate in the US to have Giving Institute and have Giving USA, just as its massive, amazing repository you were talking about yesterday. You were actually in a session yesterday with Una Silly.
Yeah. And the data that they have is just incredible. I mean, from my perspective, like being a data scientist, it's just like, that is a treasure mine. Our gold mine of just information and the insights that they can go through is just like at the jump of a hat is just wild.
Yeah, Scott said he was going to leave me yesterday to go work for Una. If AI just goes away, I just want to go work on data. No, I love it too. I mean, I'm a huge fan, and I started reading Giving USA in I think around 2010, 2012, and I actually went back. I think I told you this. I went back to the historical library last year, and I created PDFs of all the original, first 10 from like 1955 to 65 or something. And it was just crazy because it's like little, it's like teeny. There's like these teeny little books.
Yeah.
And actually at some point we got to talk about those on the podcast, because like just talking about like how far we've come as an industry. I mean, it was a very nascent industry. I mean, it was just, really, really high level. And we should do some data analysis on it. Now that, and actually I haven't even thought about, we could load those PDFs into GPT and see what it says. I'll be really curious to see if it summarizes each of those reports.
I thought we go to Indiana and do a podcast there. Library.
Actually, we are going to do one in person in Indiana. As of last night, I found out that we're going on the road. We're going on the road. It's going to be actually sponsored by JGA, and we're going to do one at Indiana School of Philanthropy.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
awesome.
I see what you mess. You're like on an airplane for like a couple hours. I know it. You're like so in tune. Well, it's great to be here. We're going to make this podcast. We're just going to dive right in, and we've got other things we got to run off to today, but it's great to be able to be here, and we love being in person. So we're going to be doing that more and more, especially in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be traveling quite a bit together up to Toronto and to Boston and some other places. So you'll see us with probably a very similar background, maybe different levels of sunshine behind us. All right. So why don't we just dive into like the news of the week? Like every week, I always say this, like every week's a big week in AI because you blink and like all these things happen. I know it's just nuts. So this one, I know you wanted to talk about Nvidia, and I honestly have a hard time talking about Nvidia because I have this total fail of like in high school, I told my son in his fake finance class to invest all the money in Nvidia, and he did well, but I didn't invest any money in Nvidia. And if I had when he was in high school, I literally probably wouldn't be here. Like, let's be real. Like I'd be like out on the beach or something. So
I sent you, there was a graph going on LinkedIn about revenue of market capitalization of Nvidia and Intel. And up until 2015, Nvidia was capped at like 10 billion.
Forever. Yeah. Just like straight across. Yeah.
And then Bitcoin hit, and they were using Nvidia chips. Nvidia's making the chips that all of that relying on. And it went from 10 billion to 1 trillion, 1.9 trillion since 2015 to now.
Yeah.
So less than 10 years, 200 times.
It's amazing. For those that don't know, if you're new to the podcast, well, it's probably hard to miss the word Nvidia. Nvidia's all over the news. I mean, it's probably what's going to start the next war. Who knows? So basically, Nvidia started out in the video game industry, and they were making GPUs, graphical, processing units for PlayStation and Xbox. And these chips are really good at like rendering things on the fly. Like they were just like, because video games are just, there's like lots of unpredictable events, and these GPUs are kind of tuned for this. And I remember talking to this data scientist. He was working in population health, and he was like, oh man, like these video game units are just crushing it in AI. And this is like a while ago, before AI was like it was before we even built our first machine learning model. And I was like, that's rad. I mean, it actually really made sense. Like, oh yeah, video games, like because of the quick processing need for that kind of thing. And then Nvidia has just dominated the space. I mean, there's also obviously lots of other players making chips. I mean, Amazon's making their chips and IBM, Intel still making chips for a lot of other people. And then Sam Altman wants to go raise, well, we're going to talk about the $2 trillion club, but like he wants to go out and raise a couple trillion to build his own chips. And the reason why I mentioned like next world war, and it's not like that outlandish, is because most chips are made overseas, and there's a lot of fear in that. Like if they're made overseas, we have little control over them. Like if some country shuts down export, like one other country will be at a huge disadvantage. So there's right now like a lot of political tension around the world from almost every country to try to bring chips onshore. The US is trying to bring chips onshore very, very quickly. The challenge is that even doing that is that the raw materials for those chips are coming from, I think it's like 30 or 40 other countries. So like, even if you're manufacturing chips onshore, you're still reliant on this whole kind of like connected world. And that's how it is for most things. So I don't know what else on Nvidia other than just making me like totally like my eye twitch every time you mention it.
I did see something earlier on LinkedIn that there's a little clip with Justin Huang, the CEO of Nvidia, and he started out as a toilet cleaner, a janitor, a dishwasher.
Yeah.
So he went from one end of the spectrum to the other. I think it's that work ethic, right? So he's not just going to like stop.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, he had a few actually, I think it was at either bankruptcies or a few companies before that just didn't work out. Like the guy's a grinder. Like, I mean, to your point, like just go. And so that's pretty cool. And I was with someone last night who met him, and he actually, Nvidia donated actually a very high throughput computer to UC Irvine. And I was with the vice chancellor at the time who was at UC Irvine, and he said that he met him. He goes, if he was sitting at this table right now, you would never know that he loans Nvidia. Like he'd just be like a guy that would just be talking to you, and he would never bring it up. It's like, yeah, really cool.
So access is the gold rush.
I know. Yeah, no, that's true. Like, it's like, who's that guy? Like just sitting there like pickaxe. Who needs a pickaxe? Oh, you need 2,000 of them. Okay. Like it's ridiculous. Like the arms race over GPUs. All right. So next in news, which I was definitely, it's like this love to hate to love kind of thing, is Elon Musk sues ChatGPT. I don't know. I got so many, you probably had a lot of friends and neighbors asking you about it this week. I had like text messages like, what do you think? And Elon, and it's getting harder and harder to back up Elon. I mean, he's brilliant and he's a physicist and he's thinking like 20 steps ahead. But I think Connor Grennan yesterday said it so well in this LinkedIn post. I don't know if you read it, but he's like everyone like loves Elon for some of the things, the brilliance of it, but other things, like he's that kid who's like, if you're racing and he loses, he's the first one to go tell everyone's mom is like, they're racing and they're not supposed to, or something. Like he's just, and it's like this outlandish thing. And I saw that, I don't know if you saw some of the rebuttal, but ChatGPT comes out, or OpenAI comes out with like arm swinging. Like they've been pretty passive about a lot of things, but this one, they just pulled out like every freaking email they could. And they're basically like, Elon, like you're suing us for this, but you literally were the one that you wanted to take this over and you wanted to merge it with Tesla and whatever. So all this to say is, applied AI for fundraising. Does it change our perspective on OpenAI in our daily use? Me, no. Like I'm still an OpenAI fan. I think to me, it's like it's kind of like a feeble attempt to try to just get attention. And he's upset because his AI is not taking off as fast. I don't know.
I don't see much happening from it outside of a little drama. Yeah. So we already had Sam Altman getting fired. So that drama has resolved itself. I think it's just a little bit of drama here on this too.
Yeah, it did and didn't. And then that's always like the nice segue, because the segue into responsible AI, which I think was the biggest news, probably the biggest unknown news for the week, at least for me. Like I got this text from one of our employees. He's like, hey, have you seen this open letter about responsible AI that is spawned by a VC? Actually it's called Build AI for a Better Future. We call on everyone to build, I'm going to be dramatic, boldly deploy and use AI to improve people's lives and unlock a better future. I mean, that sounds like pretty like lovely, right? Flowery. I don't know. It's still early. Give me a break. But it is a butt crackathon. So this open letter comes out and I'm like, oh, that's nice. People are talking about it. And the reason this goes back to OpenAI is because the reason why originally that Sam Altman got fired, essentially, and like, I don't know if we use the term, but like there was a coup. it was over safety or concerns of safety that OpenAI was kind of taking shortcuts and whatever. And which is whatever. I mean, it's fine. I mean, Elon is saying that this is supposed to be a nonprofit, but then it's supposed to be for the benefit of humanity. But then he's kind of dumb because he wanted to take it over anyway and be the sole owner and shareholder of it. And Sam was like, no, nobody should own it, whatever. And Sam comes back and he's no longer, I guess, president of OpenAI. He's like CEO, So, I mean, they've right-sized some things, but the one thing we don't hear about is concerns over safety. So like after the whole hiring, firing thing, we don't hear about safety. So Elon's not wrong in the sense of like, hey, the safety issue is still there. We never resolved it. But the way he's going about it, I think is weird. So this open letter comes out. It's from the VC, right? I don't even know. Like we're probably going to make a bunch of enemies here. So SV Angel. And at the end of the day, it's like not a bad sentiment to say, hey, everybody, like, hey, there's a lot of power in AI, but let's draft like a really short letter. And this letter is probably like 400 words or something. I mean, it's
there's more words in or framework.
I'm sure. Yeah.
The headline itself is about a third of the text. So I think that's the one that what I've been reading about is like, there's nothing in you. There's no teeth. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like saying, hey, be good. Right? Be
Yeah.
a good person, sign us to
Yeah.
that you're going to be a good person. So that definition is very loose.
Yeah.
Right? There's no repercussion. There's nothing here. So and everyone's signing it, but it's kind of pointless unless they start bringing up more information about like how they plan on doing it. But right now, there's just nothing going on.
So here's it. I have so many issues with this letter, like so many issues. And so I got this text from one of our employees, and like I said, and I was like, oh, how nice. And then I was instantly like, what the hell? Like, and then I got on the airplane, and then me trapped on the airplane for 3 hours. I'm just like stewing on it. So I like write a lot of LinkedIn posts. Like my LinkedIn rants usually happen somewhere on an airplane because I'm just like a captive, and I'm like whatever. I'm just like on my notes in my phone, and I mean, here, let's break it down. Like the thing is no teeth, right? Okay. So it's like, you have this already letter. It's just like, if you watch the show Silicon Valley, like every company's like, and it's like, they say they're whatever they're going to do. And we're going to save the world. And we're going to save the world. Or it's like some like beauty pageant where it's like, we're good. I mean, it's great that you want to do that, but fundamentally it's completely flawed. Fundamentally, for-profit businesses by design are created to return profit to shareholders. If you're going to like use AI to save the world, it's essentially this letter saying that we're going to put humanity first. And by design, they cannot put humanity first. By design, safety will always come after. And it's not like, and I actually don't even think it's their fault. Like, I mean, that's by design. I'm a capitalist and like, I believe in the power of competition and all these things, and you need money to make money. So by design, these organizations are like, they're building their AI and they have to get return on investment so they can build more AI and faster AI and all those things. And then coming back and saying, oh, well, it's all about humanity is actually BS. It's not. So don't say these things, because I think like you and I can read this and in like 15 seconds, we're like, this is complete bullcrap. I would say the vast majority of people that we know, like, I mean, like vast 80, 90% of people that we know are like, oh my gosh, these companies are doing this, like they're doing it right. And I can sleep better at night.
Google, Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, Salesforce, like they're all committed to this pledge of doing AI right and beneficial. Like,
yeah.
That is the extent. Like that commitment, that definition is again very loose. And I mean, I think about what we've done right with Fundraising AI. There's a lot of still comments on there's not enough teeth on our framework, or it's too restrictive.
Right.
But at least there's something.
Yeah.
No one could ever say that.
There's literally zero guardrails. Like there's no direction, no definition, no definition of beneficial to whose humanity. There's just none of that. It's a completely fluff kind of thing. And my LinkedIn rant will come out probably later today on it. So I've just got to fine tune it. But the other part that I thought was just super ironic about this open letter. So it's like this open letter to like everybody sign. It's like we're all going to sleep well at night. And this is not the first one. There's been lots of them. And in fact, you have an example of another one. And I actually tried to sign the letter. So I'm like, well, under the guise of like, there's a form. It's like your name and whatever and your affiliation. And I put it all in there under Fundraising AI. And it's like, I'm sorry, you don't have the appropriate token. And I'm like, well, screw you. This is like the most non-open letter. It's not an open letter. Right. It's not open letter. So like, where's the representation of the signatories in that letter of the people that are using it or whatever? And again, like this is, I think we're going to talk about this. We've talked about it before. We're going to talk about it a lot more, but it's this idea that as users of AI, which pretty much everyone in the world, if you're not living, under a rock, a user of AI in some extent, that we cannot defer what responsible AI is to the makers of AI, because their incentives by design are not about safety. Their incentives are about making money. So to continue to make money, they have to be good citizens. But most of them are treating responsible AI and ethical AI as kind of like their cause marketing program at this point. I mean, that's how this reads. Like, it's basically like, oh, like we're destroying the environment, but we're like washing the oil off ducks or whatever it is, or like, no specificity.
We're doing good. So,
yeah, we're good. So sleep well at night. Yeah, tonight. So
that's the companies that are known for not being trustworthy with how they're deployed some products in the past.
Like severe concerns about their AI ethics, and they've signed the letter, and so no regulation, no, and it's just ironic too for like VCs that are like, oh, we're going to save the world as well. It's like, if you're going to say that, and that's true, then you have to put essentially responsibility over profit, which is not a very viable business strategy for scale. That's why OpenAI started as a nonprofit and became a for-profit, essentially like a B Corp. But like they started out with this idea originally. It's like, we can raise money and pool this because nobody should own this powerful technology. But the reality is like the compute power. Like, I mean, they burn through like, I don't know what it is. Like it's something like crazy amount, like $1 million an hour or something in just compute power. And so it's just not scalable that way. So anyway, look on LinkedIn. We'll push some more stuff out. I know we're going to talk about this a lot more, because it's just like, this is going to continue to come up. Responsible AI is everyone's responsibility. Same way driving a car is not only the responsibility of the car manufacturer, it's yours, it's mine, it's the drivers around us, it's the government who, puts the traffic lights up and the speed limits. So do not defer your comfort in AI to the maker of AI, whose number one objective is profit. That's the story. So then you actually took it a little bit further. So like, this is where I think this is the applied part, right? Because this is the fundraising AI, applied AI.
There was another letter that came out either the day before or the day after by MIT, and it's calling for a safe harbor. Right? Mm-hmm. So all these in the guise of having safe and responsible AI, right? All of these OpenAI, ChatGPT, Microsoft, Copilot, they have guardrails of what you can and cannot do, right? Mm-hmm. But those guardrails don't allow for safe testing of negative weights, right? And
right.
People are going to mistreat it and use it for nefarious ways, but their testing needs to be allowed. So MIT is calling for a safe harbor, and this actually has some teeth behind it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's signed by a lot of ethicists, by a lot of educators, and so on. This is a legitimate thing. Right?
Yeah.
So I use Copilot probably every day.
Yeah.
I have been on I say mock my wife for using Bing all the time.
Now you're like,
but I'm like, you can share an article and summarize it with Bing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
Right? And so I had it share 2 letters that we just talked about. And it said the first letter, which we already said has no teeth, is actually signed by over 1,000 AI researchers and experts calling for a global ban on lethal autonomous weapons.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that.
Crazy, right? Yeah.
It's not beneficial AI.
It's not. Okay. So there's a lot of nuances here. So if you're catching what Scott was saying about like your tip of the day or AI tip of the day, and most of us doing this for a while, is like, if there's a long article, you want to read it, or you don't want to read it, you want to read it, but you don't have time to read it, let AI summarize it. But this is a great example, right? Because you put it in there, the article, like verbatim, it reads that thing, distills it, and basically changes the premise of the sediment of it on a global ban on autonomous weapons. Yeah. Right. Even though the article wasn't primarily about that. It was just this.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Never referenced weapons, anything like that. And if I hadn't done this, granted, it was a very short open letter for me to read.
Yeah.
If I didn't skim through it before doing that summarization, I would have been like, oh, okay, well, this is legitimate.
So it's interesting because the previous open letter that I remember, and this is actually referenced in, it might have been Social Dilemma or something like that, like Jeffrey Hinton and others had created a letter, and they had like 1,000 signatories on the global ban for autonomous weapons. And it was like a really big, and actually I'm like super in favor of that. Like, I mean, like really, none of us want Chappie, like running down the street with a freaking gun. Like, I mean, that's just like, we've seen the bling and all that stuff. Like, that's just not cool. So like the global ban on autonomous weapons, I totally get behind. And so I'm wondering if, and most likely, and this is what like trust but verify, and maybe not trust, but just verify. Yeah, right? Just verify and then trust. Maybe I think that's how we have to switch this narrative, is that I'm wondering if it's referencing that other letter, because a lot of the same people signed both letters. So I'm guessing it's like confused, and it's like, oh, there's this letter and all these same people, and that other letter was on the ban for autonomous weapons.
Well, it did. assuming it's something like that, or it's just finding like, all right, well, there's a letter about beneficial AI. It's probably about this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I did the same thing with the other MIT Safe Harbor article. And it said, I asked about some of the signatories of that one, and it said, Timnat Gebru, it said Joy Bolagwani were both like very
big time into AI ethics and
this is legitimate.
Yeah.
But then I went through, I didn't see them as signatories either.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
I think both of those things. And I think, again, I've been trusting Copilot for a long time and trusting but verifying.
Yeah.
But it's not static. It doesn't stay the same. It changes, it evolves. Sometimes it devolves. Right. So I'm thinking, when you're using these tools that you're relying on, they're changing them all the time.
Yeah.
So just like your car, you don't get into it and just assume it was great on day one. It's going to be great every day thereafter. You check the tires, check the oil pressure, all those different.
You check your oil pressure. I mean, there's usually a gauge. I mean, I don't know if that gauge ever works. I've never had my oil pressure go down, so I don't know what that looks like. You know, so I think we're hitting on something, and we can round home on this and kind of make this a short one or shortish one. Is that kind of reversing that back into like trust but verify, but actually verify, but then trust. And I think that's so important because trust, again, is the operative word in fundraising. And so when we were in Microsoft Global Summit, there was a person from, I forget where he was from, big UK charity. And he basically said, we're in the business of trust.
Right.
And we are essentially nonprofit by definition is essentially exchanging something for nothing. And so that requires a tremendous amount of trust. And so that's why I think, again, like if we think about the OpenAI letter and we think about all these companies that have either their own framework, and they have a lot of good frameworks, and they're using them within their organizations to try to like stay on the train, keep the train on the tracks. But the reality is that their interests are different than our interests. And that if our sector is wholly unique from the for-profit sector, and this is where it's like really hitting me lately, is like if we are fundamentally different as a charitable giving sector, and that sector relies primarily on trust, how can our framework for responsible AI look the same as OpenAI and Microsoft and Google? And not to say that there's a bad at all. Like that's good that they are doing these and they have direction in their organizations, but how can ours look the same? And this is where we really get into that responsible and beneficial AI, not just responsible, which is based on kind of an ethical framework, but responsible and beneficial to humanity at large. And I think that's just something that, going back, I think that tip is that we have to hold ourselves to a higher level of accountability and responsibility, that we have to trust, we have to actually verify then trust instead of trust then verify. And maybe that's the takeaway for today from the nonprofit lens.
Yeah. And I mean, that's also why my main tool is probably
more and more
those sources.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do that verification.
Exactly. I mean, actually, it's been through these conversations that I've been using Perplexity a lot more because, I mean, and not to unravel this, but the Google Gemini debacle, which still is like very much alive, is that I listened to this really great podcast the other day, and it was talking about like, this is this like pervasive breach that Gemini basically recreated history. And like lots of people noticed, and it pissed off a lot of people, and their stock has paid the price and all these things. But what if it wasn't pervasive? Like, what if it was subtle? And what if it was just like incremental, in that they would have rewritten history just a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and that like the average person wouldn't have known. Over time, history gets rewritten. And so that's not, there's either the conspiracy side of that somebody could do that and use that to do that for sure, because you just read something and you're like, oh, it's verified. And over time, large language models will pick up on it, and even Perplexity would put a thing of where it came from eventually, because it would have been rewritten. So verify but trust. I mean, I think we are in a new world where large language models, Gen AI, are the speed of advancement are exceeding our ability to fully understand it all the time. And so verify but trust. And I think maybe that will be our takeaway at our session today at the Giving Institute as well.
Yeah. Respect that.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, this is fun. I love being in person. Like it's great to be here. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. And if you do, tell everyone. If you don't, it'll be our little secret. Just don't like bury it under a rock, throw it in the trash. No, it's great to be here. We're going to see you again next week. And I know we're going to have 10 more to talk about, because by the time we go to bed tonight, like the world will be different. So awesome. Cool. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.